Hello, and welcome back to another episode of the Collective Clicks podcast. This is another episode in the series with Aaron and Miquella Gaunt from Southern California that took their business from local to national, and with PPC as the primary channel, were able to do 7 figures in revenue just from PPC in their first year. This time, we're going to talk about the marketing decisions that were made over this time period to help them get the best quality leads and the most volume of leads possible to grow to that 7 figures in revenue.
Aaron, Miquella, I'm super excited to talk with you guys about marketing, which is something we've kind of like touched on in a few of the other videos, but I think it's an awesome experience to go deep and talk about kind of how you've done what you've done. Obviously, we work together on this aspect. This is the aspect I'm personally most passionate about, most knowledgeable about, and it's really interesting for me to learn kind of how you view it and why you've chosen to execute on certain elements of your strategy. So anyways, that considered, what are the things that you think about when choosing what marketing channel you're going to go after? Obviously, you have experience with outbound channels like cold call, texting. Seems like mail's been good to you. PPC, Facebook ads. Like, what is it that you're looking for?
Inbound leads now. Hands down, we want inbound leads for our primary source of revenue. Now, obviously, there's different types. I mean, again, a bunch of stuff. But what we want to do, and what I've seen, because what our primary business is marketing and sales. I know they always say that. But that's literally every business is marketing and sales. If I went and we talked about, we were just talking about you and how your business is doing and how you've really did a great job on, let me call it, dominating the space and being a top provider for real estate investors. But it's like, and obviously, yes, you are very skilled. Obviously, you have the data to help us get to the next level. That's why we love having you guys a part of our team. But it's also, you really got yourself out there. You really marketed your company out there to get yourself known, right? So marketing is huge, right? I think if you're gonna start any business, you need to really be particular on how you're gonna market, who you're gonna work with to market, right? Obviously, in this case, do you want an in-house, obviously using a marketing agency, but we've been really seeing a lot of good results with your company, and that's PPC and direct mail.
Yeah. Okay. No, that's helpful. That's helpful to think of. So inbound is primarily what you're looking at, and then you've got a few channels that can fit in there, like PPC, SEO,
which we need to do.
What's the next one?
Yeah. Well, the good news is I came here to upsell you today. So.
There you go.
You came to sell us something.
Yeah, I'll leave the contract. I'll leave with the contract.
Was that a part of the script?
Yes. This is the part, Aaron, where you say, yes, I will give you more money. So, okay. So inbound marketing channels are what you're looking at. And then obviously PPC's been the one that you chose to focus on the most, which is an unusual choice, just considering like the inbound nature of the lead, just a completely different conversation with sellers, which I'm sure is what you've noticed is you've grown to 7 figures in PPC revenue over the past year, which is a huge accomplishment. Not a lot of people go
that channel alone. Yeah.
Yeah. Not a lot of people go and like PPC alone as a marketing channel, 0 to 7 figures in a single year. And there's a lot that plays into that. So yeah, I want to pick out those different things. And we've changed a lot over this time period about how we're doing things. I know something that we were talking about before is like, you've got to have like the vision and be willing to give it the time and follow the process. But that doesn't mean that you're unwilling to make changes during that time. You got to be working on the right things. What are some of the big changes that we've made to the PPC marketing over the past year?
Like us personally, or like what we've seen you guys change?
Well, I could probably speak a little better to what we've changed, but unless you notice anything in particular that you like really want. But
well, yeah,
I guess what I'm thinking here is like budgets are a big factor.
Yeah.
Like locations. I know we've made some major changes in terms of that, and that's something I really want to dig into because there's a lot of strategy into like why do you target this market versus that market and how those different things worked for you. So yeah, there's a lot to unpack there. But like when I think of PPC strategy. I think of 2 things. So number one, you have the parameters. Parameters are just rules that we have to live within. Like we have this budget, we have these markets, this kind of ad schedule, whatever. Like those are the parameters. And then you have optimizations, which are like we're adjusting these keywords, or we're changing these bids, or we're going to improve our landing page, or we're going to change our ads. when I think of like what a business owner needs to know about their marketing, they need to understand parameters, not optimizations, right? So that's why a lot of the changes, you'll notice a lot of the stuff that we talk about together in your marketing, it's all parameter stuff. And the reason is optimizations, that's kind of just that's what we do. It's not what we have to work about. But if we're talking about like mainly budgets, locations, that kind of thing, what kind of changes have we made?
Yeah, obviously that's kind of what we look at on our business side, because you're going to give us the most high quality PPC lead there is, right, on the back end. Because we've talked about that. The difference between you could have a really cheap PPC lead, but it's not necessarily as qualified as you would want it. Regarding negative words, positive words, whatever. And then obviously the leads that you guys give us obviously have been very fantastic. Now, what I see on my end is, you're right, I have control of budget, I have control of kind of like location. And this past year has been definitely a lot of testing, understanding, where do I want, because and a lot of entrepreneurs, including such as myself, are going to want to change things and get their hands dirty and mess things up, and that's what my wife would say is, you're messing everything up. But anyways, then I say no.
That's what we tell you a few times too. We should have had Jeff in this conversation. We could have a little.
I know,
more
where's Jeff?
conversation.
Where's Jeff? I love that guy. And so, but no, it's been fantastic, because what we want to do is we want to try things out. So when we first started with you guys, we were doing $10,000 and they can ad spend a month. I can be wrong, but I think that's what it was.
Yeah, I think so too. Yeah.
And we were just here in Southern California. We got our first deal in like 2 weeks. It gave us a $40,000. I know.
Don't say that.
I know it's not the. I know you hate me saying that.
That's not the message.
I know. I mean, if you have a good sales process. Just kidding.
That was a one-call close.
But it happens. But yeah, expectations is a whole. Let's dig into that whole can of worms next. But yeah, continue.
We did have.
Not guarantee past performance does not guarantee future results.
We did have that, and obviously just a couple months later, we decided to open up a couple more markets, right? So we were in Southern California, then we decided to open up Texas, and then we decided to open up everything southern of the United States. And we're talking about metro areas.
Yeah, we did like pretty tight radiuses at first, I remember.
Sure.
Like we're trying to stay away from anything rural, just keep it in the main metro.
And we figured that, okay, the idea behind that is, okay, if we could get a deal in this metro area, we could move it, because we'll be able to dispo it. Then I decided to open up a lot more metro areas all around the United States. And then I decided to open up states. So, we really went broad. And
yeah, it's a lot of changes.
And currently, as we're filming this, we're still broad. We're hitting like 14 different states, right? Mm-hmm. And we're doing deals every single day, right? Because the idea, and every time we strategize, is, Aaron, if we go this broad, but can you dispo them? Like you're asking the right questions to your client to not steer them wrong. You're not just saying, okay, Aaron, you know what I mean? Like, just do that. You're setting the right expectation, just like your core value said. You're a truth warrior, right? And 110% you're a truth warrior, and you're gonna tell me the truth on what to expect and what can go wrong, as long as you could dispo them. But sometimes you might even say, hey, I don't know if it's a good idea, but in the end, you're going to let your client do kind of like we talked about in being a diminisher, and letting your client almost have that final say. Yeah. Right. And some aspects,
the best advice you can, but
sometimes they have to learn on their own.
They do whatever they want to do,
Exactly. It's kind of like an attorney, right? Attorney's going to give you the best advice. You're paying them for their time, and they're going to give you the advice. You're going to do whatever you're going to do, right?
Yeah.
And so anyways, so we decided to open up, because what we were looking for it. So obviously we made another video where we were spending up to $30,000 a month. Right now, just this month, we're spending $20,000. The sweet spot has definitely been about $25,000, $30,000. The idea behind that is we're spending about $10,000 per acquisition rep, nationwide. Mm-hmm. So we're at a $94 per lead right now, a nationwide campaign. We have debated on setting up another campaign to go directly into our own backyard, which we might go up to $15,000 to $20,000 per rep, right? But when it comes to marketing, don't be afraid to spend, because obviously every dollar you put in, you should be getting $5 to $7 back, right? Mm-hmm. Especially if on the back end everything's set up to get it to the finish line. So when we go into 2024, that's going to be our main focus, and it's going to be to put our dollars into the right marketing machines, ATM, right, to get that return that we were expecting to get. So, and that's going to be, again, PPC and direct mail.
Yeah. You know, one way that you're thinking about this that's really positive is you're not thinking about it as, do I want to do a California campaign or do I want to do a national campaign? You're thinking, well, could we test? A lot of our clients kind of have like the burn the boats sort of mentality, where it's like, okay, I was doing this and now I'm doing this, and then now I'm doing this and now I'm doing this. And then like at some point everything crashes and burns and you just don't really know, was it because I changed the market or is it because my team stopped working as well? Or like you don't know what it is. And sometimes like marketing's full of good ideas that don't end up working. Like, we should go into this market.
And it's not being afraid to try them.
Yeah,
you have to try them out. Like if you're going to be in business, of any kind of business, and be an entrepreneur, you can't be afraid of failure. If you are, you're not going to last very long. There's big steps we've taken that haven't panned out, but we learn from it, we adjust, and we keep going. Yeah,
I like to think about it in the terms of asymmetric bets. I'm the guy that's scared. Like I'm conservative. I don't want to like. Yeah, there's this psychological concept of loss aversion that like if you like take $1 away from someone, they're going to be a lot like they're going to be very unhappy. But if you were to give them $1, they'd be happy, but not nearly as happy as they would have been unhappy if they were to lose it. So like it's the same reason like fear in sales works, for example. Like people are more afraid of like I might not be able to sell my house to someone else than they are that like I for sure have it here.
Yeah.
But anyways, for me, I just kind of have to like look back at my business and think every single good thing that has come in my business has been through some type of bet that I made. None of them had a 100% guarantee of the results I was looking for, but they were what you'd call asymmetric bets, which means that the upside is larger than the downside, or the expected value of the upside is positive. An example could be marketing. You could say, I need to spend $10,000 a month on this marketing campaign for 6 months, and I'm risking $60,000. A lot of people would stop there and say, $60,000, I'm out. But then you have to think, what's the downside? The downside is limited. The downside is $60,000. What's the upside? Well, it's that maybe I could figure this out in such a way that I could generate $1 million in revenue this year in my business. And maybe that would set the stage for me to generate $3.5 million in revenue the next year in my business. And then for a decade, I could get awesome returns and scale this really far. And that's the upside, right?
Yeah.
And with an upside like that, risk is very acceptable, right? Where I think people go wrong is they don't take enough bets. So they put all their eggs in one basket, or they're just not willing to take the asymmetric bets. They make bets that are like, people are quicker to go buy a lottery ticket than they are to spend $10,000 a month on PPC.
Yep.
Which one has a higher expected value?
Isn't that crazy?
Yeah. But it's just it's the world we live in.
I know. That's the cool thing about business in general. I'm not going to just say this. I mean, just the fact that you could start a business and I mean, it's a cash machine that you could create a cash machine. And wholesale in general, you could create a cash machine, right? There's houses, you could always buy them at discounts. Houses are always depreciating every single day, and there's deals everywhere to be found. No matter how many deals there are, there's still deals. You're going to be a deal finder,
Oh, absolutely. What would you say your mindset was going into things at the very beginning? PPC.
Yeah. Excited, because I think that's the issue with a lot of new people that try PPC, right? Is they have this high, like we could shoot these videos, somebody could watch every single video that we're doing, and they're saying, I'm going to start PPC tomorrow, and I'm going to make $1 million, right? And I think that's where the reality, the expectations kind of get steered wrong, because they hear all over social media that PPC is the best marketing channel, which it is, but then if it doesn't work, or if they're not able to close the leads and get it to the finish line, that it's not a good place to put your marketing, right? You're going to get, I'm telling you, and this is what a lot of people think, is that I could cold call, I get 3 cold callers, I get a bunch of leads in the first week. I can spend the same amount on PPC, I can get 5 leads. Well, it takes also...
Or less in 1 week.
Right, sorry, yeah. I mean, it takes 10 leads.
Expectations. Bring it down.
It takes
1 lead in the first 5 months.
It takes a lot less leads. I'm not going to say how much, but it takes a lot less leads to get a contract, right? Yeah. So, and that contract could obviously net you a lot, and also you're going to have better quality conversations. They're reaching out to you, so now you're not banging your head against the wall against all these leads that are saying, hey, well, what's your offer? What's your offer? What's your offer? Right? I'm sure we all been down that road, but now you get to talk to people, even if they're not a fit. You had a great conversation with that person because they reached out to you, And hey, if it's not a fit, it's not a fit. You get to go part your ways and peacefully.
I think there's a misconception too that people think that like with PPC they're just gonna all be laydowns, and they're not. I mean, yeah, there's one call closes, but there's work that the acquisition has put into that. You know, they've spent half an hour to an hour on a phone or all day on the phone with them, and gotten the contract, and then you still got to put in the work to sell it. You know, I think there may be just a disconnect where they think, oh, they're hot leads, it'll be easy, and we're done, and I think they forget that there is still a lot of work you have to do on the back end to make it come to fruition.
Yeah, I totally agree with you wholeheartedly. I also think, my personal opinion, the idea that PPC leads are laydowns, I think is misguided. I think the fact that you can be at 10 leads per contract doesn't mean that you will be at 10 leads per contract.
I think you're spot on about that.
Because you have to work them differently, and it takes skill. And like, yeah, maybe they spent an hour on the phone with the seller, and you could call that the work. But what about all the training they've done for 6 months every morning?
Exactly.
Like, that's the work. You know, maybe cutting down the tree is easy, but sharpening the saw can be hard.
Right.
Yeah, that's true. I like that.
What would you say is the best? I guess here's what I'm trying to figure out. I want to hear this from your perspective. How do you know if a marketing campaign is working or if it's not working?
I mean, the easy answer is to say KPIs. You know what I mean? You know, because you get a bunch of, people do it all the time. We've even done it where you get all these contracts, but nothing has fruition into revenue. So it just comes down to KPIs. You know, 3 months later, can I look back on what I spent 3 months ago, and did those deals? Because in our CRM, we get to see a lead when it came into the system, created this date. So when I see it into transactions, I go, okay, cool. It took, and obviously, and even close, it took this many months for this deal to close, from into our CRM to the close table. So.
Yep. No, that absolutely makes sense. So obviously KPIs about performance and stuff like that. What do you do when it's early? Let's just say it's been. Let me give you scenarios. Right. Let's just say somebody out there sees this video. They start working with Bateman Collective. Right. They start generating leads, and they're wondering after a month, after 2 months, like, are they on the right track? Is it working? How do you think they can know?
If they're on the right track, you know, it's funny because I was talking to Jeff about this, and we were talking about a client. He didn't give me like names, but he used sometimes clients as examples, and he spends like $2,000 a month, and I think at that month he got like 2 opportunities, right? That's $2,000 spend. To me, that's not a lot to spend to get a good return.
It's kind of like the lowest we would ever take. We'd say like be really, really careful that you like give it a lot of time, because the less money you put into it, the more time you need to see the result.
I would say, you know, it goes back into your KPIs. You know, how many of these leads? Okay, so you look at collectively out of the past 3 months. You know, you should always look at 90-day increments. How many of these leads came into my system? Because again, you should have a filter in your CRM. All right, how many of these leads have we contacted? How many leads have turned into opportunities, and how many of these leads have turned into transactions? I mean, I hope that answers the question.
Yeah, you're looking at a funnel basically.
Yeah, and to me, it's just like when I first started. So now I don't call the leads, but when I first started with you, I was the one on the phone, so I got to kind of feel the leads, hear the leads, touch the leads. You know what I mean? Yeah, and I got to know the quality of these leads compared to other types of leads. So I knew it was working because these leads were amazing. You know what I mean? But also I was obsessed by making sure I got the contract. So if it was right down the road, I'll go to their dang house. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Unfortunately, nationwide we don't get to do that. But when a lead comes in, going off track here a little bit, you need to be crazy obsessed when a lead comes in. So my team will call them 4 to 5 times. Right, I say you need to call them. You need to send an email, voicemails. Right, everybody needs to be calling them. Right, and then they stay in our bucket, our new bucket. We call it 15 days of pain. And in that 15 days of pain, you're blowing them up every single day.
Love the branding.
And yeah,
no,
I think there's a lot you have to look inward on within your business to see if it's working. You have to see, am I getting to these leads quickly? Am I actually having quality conversations? One metric we have our acquisitions and dispo all put in is how many quality conversations did you have? And a quality conversation for us is 10 minutes or more. that goes to show, like, are you guys actually having in-depth conversations? And then seeing how many it takes for you to get it to a contract and then get it to close. So I think it's hard to just look at out on the outside of it, because you have to look at what are you doing internally to nurture those leads. Are you taking 3 days to get to the lead, or are you calling it within 30 to 40 seconds?
Yes.
Let me ask you this: what would you tell somebody, or ask a new client, on how do they think that the campaign's working? Like, if I say, hey, if you want to come join and obviously pay for our services, how will you? It's like almost a question to them. How will you know that our marketing or this service has been of value to you?
Yeah, I mean, we often ask those questions because it kind of reveals, like, for us, retention's the biggest metric. Like, do we start the month with however many clients? How many clients do we end the month with, minus the new ones we added on?
Oh.
That's our number, right? Because it shows, are we adding value? Do people see reason to continue working with us? And with that being the case, we're always digging into, like I remember as part of your sales process, you talked about like the going through the things that blow up deals up front, because you're saving yourself the pain of those things being a problem later. Like, I don't want to be on a different page. But yeah, I'm asking you a lot of questions. I'm asking out of genuine curiosity, but I've like thought through my answers to these things, like,
For sure.
a lot.
Yeah.
Because obviously this is what we do. And
because that is a very good question. Like, how do I know this campaign is actually working? Even when it comes to our going from our backyard to slowly opening up our campaigns because we wanted more leads at a cheaper cost,
yeah,
no matter where they were going. And it's like, how do I know that this actually worked, right? Obviously, you're going to look at how much money am I bringing in per campaign each month, obviously. But it's a good question.
Yeah, for me, it's really about two different types of metrics. Number one is the leading metrics. Number two, lagging metrics, which I'm sure you're crazy familiar about. The biggest problems that we see our clients making is that they look at the lagging metrics too early. And what happens is the lagging metrics always look bad really early. Like, you could bring in a new sales guy and, like, after 2 days be like, oh, his close rate's 0%. Worst sales guy ever, right?
Worst ever.
Yeah.
But, like, we all hear that and we laugh because it's like, that doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
But a lot of people don't really realize what it takes in terms of sample size to do good marketing. Like, in the spirit of, like, understanding how long does it take, or, like, how long do you have to give it before you look at lagging metrics, I hired a data scientist recently.
Oh, wow.
And basically gave them the question, because it's really a statistical question. Right?
Yeah.
Like, every time we buy a click, there's a certain percentage likelihood that someone becomes a deal. And then there's an amount of time that it would take for us to get enough data there to understand how the campaign's actually performing. Turns out there's all these, like, I don't want to take you back to, like, your college diploma. And
Yeah.
I don't know, Miquella, if you did his statistics homework too, or if it was
I
just
might
the
have.
spreadsheets. So anyways, there's lots of statistics stuff, but
Yeah.
think of it like, okay, I don't want to get like crazy deep into
You're
things,
good.
but I'm getting deep into things, so we're just going to talk about it. Think about, like, there's this thing called simulation-based inference. It's a statistical concept. Picture it like I'm here and I'm just like flipping a coin, right? I'm just flipping my coin over and over again. Well, then you can start to ask yourself the questions like, well, how many times do you have to flip a coin to know that a coin is actually fair?
Yeah.
It's an interesting question when you really think about it. And the answer is there is no answer, because there's always going to be a bell curve around that 50%. It's going to be just slightly higher. So it's always going to be 50% of data above, 50% below.
Yeah.
So then you have to think, well, how many times do I have to flip the coin to know with whatever percentage confidence that the coin at least gets me heads 40% of the time, for example? And then you got this wide bell curve around the 50%, and it just gets more and more narrow over time. And eventually 90% of the bell curve is above the 40%. Hope that makes some sense. So the question that we tried to answer was to know that I'm getting a 5x return, or to know that I'm assuming, like, a coin, we know it's going to get 50% long term,
Yeah.
right? So with a marketing channel, assuming it's targeted towards a 5x return, how many dollars do we have to spend on it to know with 95% confidence that it gets at least a 4x return? Does it make sense? It's like for the problem. The answer was, I'm trying to remember exactly what it was. I think it was $145,000 is the number of how much it takes statistically, which doesn't take into account that, like, you get better at it over time, or that you make pivots or changes, or the algorithm learns. It's just like, even assuming it was like working, just like a coin does, like from the very first flip, you still have that probability of a 50% chance of success. assuming it works exactly like a coin, it was like 140,000 or 135, 145. It was somewhere in that range, just less than $150,000. And I was a little bit like shocked when I saw that. But the crazy thing is, a lot. So we measure. People, of course, quit working with us.
For sure.
It happens. You work with enough people, it'll happen. And
that never happens to us. When sellers sign a contract, they're with us forever.
We don't have any sellers ghost us.
Yeah, lifetime contracts is what we should start doing with our clients. As long as they're in business, you will pay us. I like to try to enforce that. So so we did that, and the number one reason that people stop doing this marketing is poor ROI. That's the number one reason. And occasionally there's like, I didn't like this person on your team, or whatever. Those things happen, but it's mostly poor ROI.
Right.
85% of those circumstances where it's poor ROI, we asked them at the beginning what ROI they needed, and the ROI that they had was not statistically different from the ROI that they said they needed, which is interesting, which means there's sample size issues. It's random variation. Anyways, moral of the story, investors on average are making decisions far faster in their marketing than they should be.
Yeah.
That's kind of the takeaway that I have from it. And it means that we have to do better about educating them, but also sometimes people, like you said with the lawyer, like you can hire an attorney to like give you advice, and you also just do whatever you want.
Yeah.
Sometimes that's where we're like, but that's where I think like you'll hear me say it like so I'm blue in the face. Like you got to give new marketing campaigns 6 months to get that data full circle, because if you don't, you end up with situations where in your mind it's a failure, but you might not have the data to prove that it's a failure.
Right.
And it's all about how you look at it. And some people are luckier than others. Sometimes it just cruises right out of the gate and everything's good. I remember when you launched your campaigns, you were telling me you had like a really good lead like within like 2 days or something like that. I can't remember if that was one that you contracted or not.
Probably.
Yeah, it's just like it took off like immediately, and that's awesome when that happens. But yeah, you have to be careful about drawing conclusions about the performance of the campaigns in the future. Just like you'll have like a bad week here and there, a bad month or a bad quarter. Like those things happen.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's kind of like when you look at a person, or even the real estate space, when they get a deal too fast, and then they feel that like, then they don't realize that it does take a lot of work to get. I remember when I first started, consistent deals, right? You get a deal. If you got a deal in your first month, they don't see the struggle that it actually takes to get actual deal, because it just fell into their lap, right? Most people don't get deals for like months, their first deal. And then after that, once they get the proof of concept, that person knew how the journey to get that first deal, so they're gonna be a little more consistent. I've seen the people that like obviously get the deal too fast, and then they take months to get their second deal, and like, this is way too hard.
Yep, you're totally right. So that level of patience, in my opinion, is like it's a really important part.
Yeah.
It's just hard for most visionaries and entrepreneurs.
So is this the dynamic between you two? Miquella, are you the patient one? Or are you still the impatient one? Or are you both the impatient one?
It depends. We're a good sounding board for each other. He's definitely the visionary, and then I'm the integrator, and so we'll talk about marketing ideas, and he comes in and he's like, well, what about this? I'm like, no, we agreed. We're gonna stick to this for this long. Okay, fine. But I mean, he's got the great ideas to propel the business forward. And every business, I think, really does need a good sounding board.
One thing about Miquella is that she's always supported me. If I some of the decisions I have made that has got us to where we're at now, which is fantastic. Most spouses would just say that's too much risk. My wife supports me no matter almost no matter amount of very calculated and trustworthy risk. But because she's done that, we've been able to grow this company and grow closer as a partnership. If she was the kind of spouse that would have said no day one, when I said I want to put a wholesaling course on a $5,000 credit card, and she said no, then we wouldn't be where we're at today. Yeah. But she said, go for it. I know you did it. And I did it. I got a $20,000 deal 2 months later.
But there's trust. I trust that it's, because it's ours and we're not separate people. Obviously, we're married. Because it's our company, I trust that the decisions he's making are for the better of our family. This whole company here is for our kids. And I know that he's not going to make a risk that's going to put them in jeopardy. And so, and I know that if he's coming to me with the idea, he's already been thinking about it for a while and just not said anything. He's going through it in his mind. And so when by the time he comes to me and says, this is the idea I have, it's like, okay, go. what do you don't need me for it. Go.
That's an interesting, very interesting relationship you guys have. It's very, very cool. I think for my wife, ignorance is bliss.
I was just about to ask you how. I mean, when you tell your wife, hey, I mean, obviously you're doing incredibly well. When you say, hey, I'm going to do X, Y, Z, which I'm sure there's been a lot of risk that you guys, every entrepreneur has gone through risk. I mean, how do those conversations go?
Yeah, well, here's the thing. I'm more conservative than either of you. If you're like the risk taker and Miquella, you're like the one who holds them back, like I'd be the one who would hold you back. So, different levels. But
your wife's the risk taker by wanting
6
6 kids?
oh my goodness.
And you're supporting her, right?
Yeah. And then somehow she's even more conservative than I am. So we're just on a totally different level than you guys are. But I've always been comfortable with risk, and she's always been trusting of me.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
And I'm comfortable with risk that's like very minimal. And here's one weird aspect, and I think of this like with marketing too. I absolutely think it applies. Like I'd be happier. I don't know if this is like an entrepreneurial thing. I don't know if it's like my messed up brain or whatever. But
It's
like,
probably mess up brain.
let's just say we're like just investing money, right? It's just like who can invest money better. There could be a version of me that goes and buys a lottery ticket and then wins the lottery and makes like 1,000x what I bought all my lottery tickets with and stuff. And then there's a version of me that throws in the stock market and then loses like 20% over 2 years on the S&P 500 in a recession. I'm more comfortable with the second one. The second version of me, not the first version of me. Because what I'm focused on is making good decisions, making smart bets.
Right.
And in my opinion, a bad bet that turns out good isn't good behavior. So that's where for me, it's like, it's never been about the outcome.
No, yeah.
It's been about playing the game the way the game deserves to be played. It's more of like a process than a results orientation.
Yeah.
And I think it's honestly a really good mindset for marketing, because you have to accept that you'll lose
Oh yeah.
some of those bets.
Yeah.
But the game is, can you make those asymmetric bets where the upside equals this and the downside equals this?
Yeah. And the opportunity wouldn't be there if you didn't take the bet.
Yes.
There wouldn't be the chance to get, a $40,000, $60,000 assignment fee if you didn't make the bet.
100%.
Yeah, I mean, it's scary for a lot of people to say, like our average monthly spend in marketing this year was probably like all together, just in marketing spend. We're not talking about overhead, we're not talking about subscriptions, all that stuff. We're talking about, it's probably about 30 grand, right? 30 grand a month.
A month,
whatever.
yeah.
Yeah, tell that to you 4 years ago.
Oh,
For sure.
yeah.
You would have been.
No,
Yeah.
for sure.
Yeah.
And
But you're playing a bigger game.
well, next year, our plan to spend per month is 70 grand, right? So
You need the marketing budget of the business you want, not of the business you have.
Exactly.
A lot of people set marketing based on top line revenue. You need it to be based on the top line revenue that you're going to have at that time.
Exactly.
did you hear that? That's exactly the truth, and that's exactly what we're going to this next year.
Yeah.
But it goes back into your risk now, right? It's not that we know now that as I spin this, my team, our processes, it goes back to the levers. It's
We
going
have trust in the foundation.
It's going to handle it. It's going to be able to handle that inbound stuff.
It would be scarier to spend that bigger marketing budget if we didn't have the foundation of the team that we have.
Yeah,
But because we know that they can lock it up, we know that Dispo can sell it. The risk tolerance, I guess, is a lot lower because there's faith and trust in our team.
Yeah. No, you're not doing anything new. You're just doing more of what you've already proven works.
Right.
Just at a higher level. Do you know what the metric impression share is? You heard that metric?
I've heard you say it before, yeah.
You've probably heard me say it before. You might have.
All over podcasts, yeah.
I'm sure, Jeff. Impression share is basically, think of it like market share for Google. It's like what percentage of what you could be getting are you getting with your budget?
Right.
And where it's really telling is it tells you kind of contextually how many leads are you getting in a campaign compared to the number of leads that you could be getting. Here's the thing that's really exciting about your situation to me. If we look at the impression share in your campaigns, it is very low. A lot of people would view that actually really negatively. They would say, I'm only getting this small fraction of my potential. I view that as, you just did 7 figures in PPC in a year with getting a small fraction of your potential.
Right.
What does that mean your potential is?
Yeah.
It's really, really high. And that's what naturally happens when you expand into more markets, is that ceiling goes up and up and up, because now you can spend whatever you can spend in this market plus whatever you can spend in that market and that market and that market. And you can add those together and it's this really high number. But not a lot of people, like for anybody listening to this, I encourage you to think like right now, do you have a lever in your business that you know you can pull and get more leads?
Right.
A lot of people don't.
Yeah.
That's the really cool thing about PPC, in my opinion, is the availability of those metrics and the total scalability of the channel. Like if you told me you need 10 times the number of leads next year, I could absolutely make a plan to make that happen. And I know it's possible. Especially if you're flexible on like what markets they come from or something like that. Like it's,
Right.
I mean, until like we've done that 10 times the number of leads thing like several times, you're not going to bump into the issue of like there not being enough leads out there. And that's just, it's insane potential, right? If you really think about it, like you figured out how to make something work on a small scale. And then the only thing between there and this higher level is just multiplying more of what you're doing.
Yeah.
And that could be done on the ads, that could be done in the team. And you'll run into new challenges, right?
For sure.
Like you'll go from being a leader to leading other leaders.
Yeah, yeah.
And you'll go from a small team to a larger team, and you'll go from 20,000 a month in ad spend to 200,000 a month in ad spend.
There you go.
And those are all like it's different. Like it does change, but it's like that's the power of marketing, right? It's the ability to like scale a business.
Yep.
I'd bet to say 90% of businesses in America don't have that lever. If they needed to 10x their lead flow next month, they wouldn't have a way to do it.
Yeah.
That's the first thing I think a lot of companies, not just obviously wholesaling or real estate, but a lot of companies do cut. My mom has been in marketing forever. She's her master's and everything in it, and she always says that it's the first thing that every company wants to cut out.
Yeah.
That is exactly what happens. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, I could tell you like market shift last year, which is actually ironically when we started working together, which I didn't really piece together that was an interesting time in your business. You were cutting cold calling and scaling way back on like cold calling, texting, and jumping into a new marketing channel at $10,000 a month in Q4, the worst season in real estate, right after like interest rates went from rock
Seems
bottom.
like a good
to,
idea.
I needed hotter leads. I'm just kidding.
Yeah, talk about risk. Like you were just like layering on every possible unknown all at the same time. And that was, I mean, for a lot of people, Q4 of last year was a tough time. I remember looking into our system and seeing how many credit cards failed from the clients that we were billing. And they just like spiked like November of last year, and like we're calling up these people and just like I just don't have money.
Yeah.
Like my business is just broke.
We felt it too.
Yeah.
Everybody felt it.
Yeah, everybody felt it in some level. Even if you were doing okay from a return on investment standpoint, let's just say you were flipping, you're used to selling things in 30 days. Now it takes 90 days
It
to
just
sell
took a little bit longer, yeah.
You just took your 30-day revenue and just spread it over 90 days.
Yeah.
Right.
And the people banking on
right
it
now.
being returning in 30 days didn't plan for it in 90.
Yeah, so cash conversion cycles became like a really real thing. It was, and there were real issues in PPC too, because people started like going online to search for like they have their property that's been sitting on the market for 90 days, and then now they go online and search for a way to sell it faster.
That was something you were getting blown up, including us. You were getting blown up by us about all the leads that were coming in that were listings, and we're like, we don't want your crap. And you guys obviously fixed it really quick, so.
Well, and there's multiple elements there. There's like some things that we did to optimize for it and understand where they're coming from, but then there's also like, now the market that's just less common now than it was then, because then,
Yeah.
Right.
the realtor told me I'd get an offer in a week, and then now it's been a month and I haven't gotten an offer.
Yeah.
Because when the realtor told me that, that's
It
how
was when
it was
it was
working.
good.
Yeah.
And then now that's not how it works anymore.
Yeah.
It's just a, they say like down markets, okay, up markets, that's fine. Just the transition from up to down is hard for a lot of businesses. But I guess my point with that is we had clients cut marketing, and we had clients we even had clients double down during that period. And it was really interesting to see the businesses that did really well versus those that didn't. I even had one client, love them to death. They still haven't marketed all year. They're still just working old leads. They cut with us, and I guess they just financially could not afford it. And they're playing this game, and they're just still like playing with these like $10,000, $20,000 months and just barely making payroll because they didn't want to lay off too much of their team and all this stuff like 12 months later. Meanwhile, other people are scaling their businesses 3x during the year because they have marketing budget.
For sure.
It's just wild. Like that's where it all starts.
Yeah.
It's so hard if
Where
you don't market.
Where do you see a healthy? I mean, we're on here. I mean, I used to always ask. Like, I'm always a big component of, because big teams. You work with big teams. I'm always a big component of like, what's a good healthy spend for a good sized team with 4 to 5 acquisition people?
You ask that question much better than most people ask the question. Most people just ask like, what should I spend on marketing? But they don't add like, with this
How
many
many
people.
people?
Or, what I've noticed is really common with our national clients that are doing well is something like $10,000 in ad spend per acquisitions manager if you're in a national model. So
Right.
So if you look at 4 to 5 acquisitions, it's $40,000 to $50,000 in ad spend that you can probably handle there. Sometimes people end up with like $20,000, $30,000 per acquisitions manager, and where you end up there is just that your lead conversion is not as good. And
Right.
I think it's really easy to, and you've done a really good job of avoiding this, but so many people get in the trap of like, well, my team says that they need more leads. They say the leads need to be better, and then you listen to the team too much.
Yeah.
And then like if you give the salesperson the number of leads they ask for, you'll always end up spending way too much money on marketing. So there's that side, and then there's like I have $5,000 per acquisitions manager in ad spend, and I truly don't have enough leads, but I'm just underfunding campaigns.
And it really comes down to, what other marketing channels you got going on, right? If PPC was your only one, obviously you could up it a little bit more, right? But, so I guess that's another thing to really look at, right? Another thing too is if my acquisition person ever said that, these leads are not good, it's all right, well, let's go listen to your calls. And that's where that whole thing changes.
Yeah, fair enough. And yeah, it's not an easy thing to do. Hiring and managing.
Well, because
teams.
obviously
it's the reason not everybody does it.
And the reason why somebody's going to join a team is because they trust us as an owner to supply them with obviously high quality leads, prospects to make sure that they convert so they can get paid, right? And when it comes to Google PPC, don't ever tell me that these leads are not good, because they're the best leads on the market. The best leads money can buy. That's what I love about PPC, and you can never say that
gives you credibility with your team, and it's more scalable. Because like with low quality leads, you can be out there hustling, you can make a business happen. But it's when you start to really build out a team, it's hard to attract the people that you want on your team,
right?
If you're not willing to be top tier everywhere else in the business.
True.
So I 100% agree with that. Shifting gears towards like other parameters, you talked about like what you've done with markets. Like we started in Southern California, then I think if I remember the story right, you tell me if this is wrong. Like you got a random lead in San Antonio, which is like normal for PPC campaigns that they give you stray leads outside of your target areas from time to time. And then you did the deal, and you're like, we can actually do this. Am I remembering that right?
Yeah.
So that was sort of like, and then you with your like quick action taking mindset were like, you know what, we'll just market San Antonio too. And Miquella probably thought you were crazy.
all of Texas.
And then just a Texas. You know what? Let's just make it the United States. And we just changed it.
Oh my gosh.
And we've done like tighter to metro areas with a higher cost per lead, and then now you're running more.
It's
of
been
a
a
wide
really,
campaign.
even though some months have been better than others, I'm so glad I went through this type of process, because I got to see things, right? I'll never not wonder. Should I go nationwide? Should I stick to just metro area? Should I go statewide? Now I know what it all looks like, right? I know what kind of returns I'm going to get, what kind of leads we're going to get, right? So
yeah, you understand how it works. One thing I'm curious to ask you about, really controversial, is is the idea of statewide versus metros.
Right, good question. It doesn't matter.
That's your opinion.
It doesn't matter. Because if you target again, at this point, it doesn't matter. Well, who knows? Maybe next year it'll be different. But what I've seen is that when I was just targeting these high metro areas, like you were still getting rural areas. You still had the problem of dispo on them, right?
Yeah. Stray leads will happen always.
Yeah, and it all comes down to it really always comes down to the size of your dispo team, right? And obviously, I wasn't in here for the dispo meeting, but the big thing is, and you actually really drill this into us, is just make sure it touches the MLS somehow. So we make sure most of our leads touch the MLS. So
yeah, fair enough. And you say if you touch the MLS, you could. Because when we first started doing the national model, you were mostly wholesaling. Hence the recommendation for my team, we got to stay tight to metros, as tight as we can. Because if you're 2 hours outside of Lubbock, Texas, looking for the one cash buyer in the town, and they don't want to buy your property, then that's your only shot. You don't really have many options. And the world of hedge funds and stuff like that is kind of slowed down.
Yeah.
So let me tell you what happens for a lot of our clients that go statewide.
Yeah,
I'm curious to hear.
I want to hear that.
All right, we go statewide. Woohoo, our leads are cheap. That's the first thing, right? And then woohoo, our cost per contract is going down. Our acquisitions team's getting tons of stuff. Then comes the dispo. Contracts are falling out left and right. Acquisitions team gets really unmotivated because now they were, you know how people are, they count their money before they've made it, and now the money that they counted that they were going to make, they didn't actually make. And they're thinking, I got this at whatever percentage of ARV. Why can't we make money on it? It's a deal. And there's all kinds of issues that come there in terms of like how you're underwriting properties, and then there's issues in terms of how you're doing dispositions and stuff like that. So let's just say you're talking to someone, because there's a lot of people out there like this that just tried like this more rural model, and they're basically saying like, yeah, I got a bunch of these rural leads. Nobody could ever make deals out of that. That doesn't work. What would you tell them?
Well, so so when a lead comes in, I will turn down a lead. You need to tell the seller it's too rural or there's not any buyers around. So you got to so we're closing on 16 properties. So the one thing I'm not super thrilled about, and something we're going to be working on in this upcoming year. So we're closing on 16 deals just this month, right? Now, a lot of those are not the big deals like I want. Like I want to see larger spreads in our deals. So more deals, like we're going to be ending the year off doing a good chunk of deals this year. But it's like, we did the same, and again, but we're almost doing the same amount of revenue, when we could have just been doing it in our backyard. So I'm just being all transparent here. So you can do more deals, more problems, right? That's another one.
Yeah, why, if it takes the same amount of time to do a deal, why make 10 when you can make 50?
Right. So like I said, one thing we are trying, nationwide works. It does work, statewide works, it all works, right? As long as you have, like I said, a good, solid dispo team, you got the proper paperwork. Like I said, like we're selling deals left and right. We really mastered the agent relations. We're teaming up with agents to list our properties. We're setting the right expectations with the sellers that, hey, it's going on the market we're gonna find a third party buyer for you, right? So what I would tell them is like, if you want to go down that route, it works. If you want more leads, if you want to keep your sales guys happy, whatever, right? And what I mean by happy is just how many times you want to ring the bell a month, right? Yeah. Now, again, what we're going to do is, like I said, we're going to be testing it back out because I think we're going to go back into our market, our backyard market. And again, who knows? I'm still kind of like all over the place when it comes to that because it does work. We are getting deals. We are making money. But we're going to, like I said, we're going to split test it because if I just switched it all the way back to Southern California, right, our population rate goes down, so our lead count's going to go down. But I know that if we go back into our backyard, I'm going to have my guys go to these properties, touch the properties, bigger deal spreads and stuff like that. So
yeah, well, that's something to consider. Like if you're going to these more rural properties, maybe you can still get them done, but these are smaller spreads for sure. You're also paying much less per lead.
Something he said too is starting with the underwriting and not approving some contracts if it's way too rural. So it's not just lock up everything. Still be mindful. Still look at where it's at.
Be honest with the seller.
Be honest with the seller. Yeah, some still want to get under contract with us, but we just are very transparent up front. This can take a while because of where you're located, and if they still want to sell, then great. But it's kind of starts from that side.
But don't count that out too. When we talk about rural, it doesn't mean all of our leads are rural.
No.
Right?
Yeah. Some of them are more than others.
Exactly. Some are more than others. But think about it. We're getting a crap ton of leads. But think about that. Where do you think most of the leads are coming from? They're coming from towns. They're coming from cities. Like, where people live.
Yeah.
Like
not cows filling out the form, except maybe Amarillo. But.
So that's something you got to think about, right? Like people are they're not just all coming from these like random little areas, because there's nobody there. So absolutely, we get leads all the time in metro areas, towns and cities where deals are happening, agents are there. You know what I mean? Like
majority of the leads.
So that's why when you talk about a statewide, you're getting leads from cities. So it's like
cities within the state.
Exactly.
Where people are living.
Yeah, fair enough. So yeah, I totally understand what you're saying. I think there's an element of budget here too. Sometimes if people go at it with a small budget, like let's just say I got $3,000 and I'm spreading it across like the whole United States. What I'm going to get there, I'm going to get a ton of leads. Like there's nothing wrong with that, but I'm probably going to get some of those most rural leads. Versus a lot of people I know that are doing really well with statewide campaigns. They do have a little bit of a larger budget, which means that they're getting the bad ones and they're getting the good ones. And then you need an acquisitions checklist for like that. It has to like fit these criteria for me to pursue this as a lead. Because if you pursue everything, then they could waste all their time with all these leads that'll never actually dispo. So you kind of have to understand like what's going to be able to be dispoed. Like it has to be within like whatever many miles of a town that has at least whatever population.
For sure.
Or you have to look on Investor Lift and find this many cash buyers nearby. Or,
there you go.
Something like that. Do you guys do something like that, or does your team?
No, I actually don't. I think that's a fantastic idea. I'm actually probably going to look in more into
it. Sounds like you're basically doing it because you're saying like you have to be able to disqualify leads, but maybe it just systematizes more, and that's probably due to it just being the past few months that you guys are doing more rural marketing, and you'll probably feel that pain eventually and build the process around it. Let's talk strategy then. I think it's an interesting case study to look at like your situation, because you've got a backyard where you get awesome spreads. You have a specific like rural targeting that's working well for you. You're getting a 5 to 6x return. Don't want to get rid of that necessarily, but could we do it with less work? What if we move to a situation where we're doing $30,000 spreads on average, and with that we can achieve the same revenue with less deals, and maybe with the same team, achieve more revenue. Very real things to think about.
100%.
I'm gonna like just blurt out a strategy, and I want you to tell me what you think about it, or how this like solves or doesn't solve the problems. I like the idea of like running 2 campaigns side by side. I think the biggest thing that you do within Google is target different cost per leads across those campaigns. I think the mistake that people make is they target rural Texas and Southern California in the same campaign. And what happens then is you don't get many leads from Southern California, and you get a lot of leads from rural Texas. Because what that campaign is going to do is it's going to bid the lowest that it can and still get leads, because you're telling Google you want as many leads as possible. And doesn't mean you can't get leads in Southern California, but you're not going to win those auctions very often. So ideally you have like your Southern California campaign, you have your rural campaign. You might want to consider getting a third campaign. If the goal is to get spreads up, if you could target a bunch of areas that have really high assignment fees, similar to Southern California, but just other markets. The thing about California is it's kind of the largest assignment fees. I don't know anywhere that has like larger spreads than you can find in Southern California, but you can increase it significantly if you're staying in places like the top cities in Florida and in Texas and DMV area. There's a lot of markets that have like Utah's a good example, Phoenix. Like you're looking for higher ARV markets, higher spread markets. You could have a campaign targeted to those areas where you're not necessarily touching the rural stuff, but you'd have a significantly lower cost per lead than you would in Southern California, but you'd likely, assuming you have a dispositions process that works everywhere, you would likely have a lower cost per lead and then a lower deal spread, but maybe a little bit lower on the deal spread and then a lot lower on the cost per lead. So a disproportionately positive return on a campaign like that. Any thoughts on something like that?
100%. And like I said, I think we kind of we're doing that just a little bit. But are you talking about basically a radius around, like they said, the big metro areas? I know I think it was Robert Winsley was talking about, he said, somebody was always targeting, places that had airports, right? Or the ones that targeted football stadiums, you remember that?
Yeah, if they don't have an NFL team, then. Which is an interesting, like Utah doesn't have an NFL team, but we're a great market. But anyways, I get the point where it's like, and then you got like Green Bay, it's like, not a huge market at all, but somehow it has a huge NFL team. So it doesn't perfectly correlate, but
so maybe like targeting like 5 huge markets would be great. You know what I mean?
Where you have like good, healthy spreads.
But like split testing the campaigns.
Yeah, because if you move into a couple more markets, you get a significantly lower cost per lead. But there's good spread markets out there. But I think the pain that you're feeling right now, based on how your marketing's set up, that makes you think to go, like you're going from like a bunch of states really rural to like Southern California, like you're like playing way over here and you're playing way over here. I'm suggesting 100%. Maybe play in the middle a little bit too, because there might be like some good middle ground. And basically, because you have a bunch of states where there's a high variance in the total cost per lead. Like you've got some Midwest states. In the profit per lead, or like the profit per deal. You have some Midwest states where you're going to do like these slim spreads, and you've also got areas like Dallas, Fort Worth that are awesome markets in there where you have large spreads, and you put them together, you're just naturally going to find more leads and more deals in the areas where there's smaller spreads, because they're the less competitive areas amongst there. Versus if you just have a campaign that still targets a lot of areas, but you just set the bar for like, I will not include any area in here that doesn't have a spread at least this high, then you start to play in that higher spread game. But you still get the benefits of like a cost per lead of a more national campaign. Of course, you're higher cost per lead than if you're going really rural, but it plays like in between the two things that you're talking about. Just something to think about.
100%. I've been thinking about it all year.
Figuring out the right way that you need to dial it in. But the really smart thing that you're doing is not burning the ships. And saying like, I have a 5 to 6x return on this rural campaign. I'm just going to completely ditch that and jump into this new thing that I'm excited about. Like that's like the impulse that a lot of entrepreneurs have, that you kind of have to like
Yep.
be careful about.
Well,
There's a time and place for that. But.
Well, like I said, we're really ramping up our direct mail campaigns. Like we're sending out at this moment, we're sending out 30,000 pieces of postcard a month right now. So we want to get that up and going. We want to get a couple deals under our belt, and then we're going to start playing around again with our areas.
Yeah, totally makes sense. Would you do direct mail in many markets?
No, just Southern California.
Yeah, it's a lot harder to scale by the time you figure out how to do the data in a lot of different markets. Versus PPC, it's really easy.
Well, and I know, like I said, we're excited to do some bigger deals this upcoming year.
Yeah, totally makes sense. Anything else on marketing? What's the secret to marketing? You know what the really interesting thing about marketing for a business like this is? Here you guys are doing 7 figures in revenue. You don't even have a marketing person for me to talk to.
No.
Which is really common
that's
in this
just me.
industry, even like growing
Yeah.
a lot. You know, if you leverage the right partnerships with good vendors and everything, like you don't, like they call it a marketing and sales business. I was talking to a friend of mine, you might know him, Vance Courtney.
Okay.
The other day, I know that he was in the Collective Genius in the same group that you were in for a period of time, so maybe you met him. But anyways, what he told me, he said like, you know, people call this, people call it a marketing and sales business. I don't agree. It's just a sales business because you can outsource marketing.
Yeah.
You can't outsource sales.
No.
Yeah.
Yeah,
No.
yeah.
Yeah, you really think about it. You're just running a sales organization. If you get good vendors for marketing, you can outsource transaction coordination.
Yeah.
You're selling deals to buyers. And you're selling them, just buying them from sellers.
True story, yeah.
Yeah, which is super cool. Any last comments on marketing? Things that you think you could do better, other people could do better?
No, just, yeah, like I said, that is a position in itself. We do plan on probably bringing on a marketing director after probably like 2025.
Yeah, it's still needed in this industry.
Yeah.
It's just you
can go a lot longer without.
Yeah, well, that's awesome. Super grateful for the time that you guys have invested into this and for having me out here. Thanks for talking all things marketing.
Yeah, thank you.
It's a ton of fun.
Yeah.
Awesome, brother.